Welcome to Q&A practice. Let's start with the plaintiff attorney. Ready? Here we go. Well, you testified, sir. She asked you your name. True. After you told her that to get out of the street? Yes. Okay. And then you told her what your name was? I told her I was the police. Okay. And then you had a conversation. She had a conversation with you, basically that she had never seen you before, right? Right. When you talked to Jim Andrews, the investigator helping in your friend's defense, you never mentioned she asked what your name was, right? I don't know what I told him exactly. You never mentioned to the fact that, well, he told you, Jim Andrews, the investigator, after you yelled, "Get out of the street," she yelled, "I have nowhere to go and I have no money." Do you remember saying that to Jim Andrews? No. Is it your testimony that you never said that to the investigator? No. Is it your testimony that you just don't recall saying that? I don't recall saying that. Okay, is that what happened? I don't remember. I remember. Is that what happened, that I told him that, or is that what happened with Linda? Let me ask you this. You wouldn't tell him something that didn't happen, right, sir? No. Do you remember them then telling Jim Andrews that she stated that she's going to soon have many things to Gary? Objection, improper impeachment. I could rephrase, Your Honor. Okay, sustained. Your testimony today was she said something about Gary Black, right? Right. She used that name Black. That's your testimony today? Yes. She remembered that name, right? Yes, I believe so. Do you recall telling Jim Andrews she only used the name Gary? No, you don't recall saying that? Not back in March. Okay, and do you recall saying that just by that name Gary you assumed that it was Gary Black? No. Okay, you don't remember saying that to the investigator? No, I don't remember the exact wording that I used. No, I do not. You wouldn't say that you made an assumption based on the fact that she used the name Gary that it was Gary Black, because it's your testimony today, officer, that she actually used the name Black, right? I believe she did. Yes. Let me ask you, is it a belief that she did, or did she? I say yes, she did. Okay, did you record that conversation that you had with Linda? No. Is that a self-initiated stop? No. What kind of stop was it? Telling her to get out of the road. I did not cite her. I didn't run her name. I wasn't looking for a self-initiated contact. When you talked to her, she never said, "Hey, I made up a story," right? I made up a story. Yeah, I've made up a story against Gary Black like you testified. No, she never said, "Hey, I made up this huge lie," or anything about that, right? No. When you contacted her, was that about a CBC violation? She's walking in the middle of the road. It's a pedestrian in the roadway. Nothing further. Redirect examination. Do you remember the questions asked by Mr. North? Officer Arnold? Yes. Would you agree that kind of suggests that maybe you're making up your testimony here this morning? Objection, relevance, sustained. Are you making this up today? No, I am not. And when you were interviewed by Layton investigators in this case, was that regarding the call on Rose? Yes, it was. Did they only ask you questions about that call? Would that be fair to say? That's right. At that time, did they ever bring up any other victims, for example, the name Linda, to you during the interviews? Yes, I don't believe so. So when you had contact with Linda in sometime between the summer and fall of 2009, you didn't know if Linda was connected with the investigation for which you'd been interviewed? Objection, leading. Did you know that? All right, hold on. I have to rule. Sustained as to leading. You may answer the second question. Sorry, thank you, Your Honor. Officer Arnold, did you know at the time that you spoke to Linda sometime in the summer or fall of 2009 that she was connected with the case that you had interviewed about? I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I'm going to withdraw. You've heard questions by Mr. North about a phone call you had with Jim Andrews, right? And you don't know to what degree he took good or bad notes regarding that conversation, do you? No, I do not. And so when Mr. North is referring to a summary of your interview with him, you didn't bring this. Did you write that summary? No, I did not. In fact, have you ever seen the summary of your statement by Jim Andrews? No. So it would be fair to say that his summary of your interview is as good or as bad a job as he did writing it. Objection, Your Honor. Relevance, speculation. Sustained. Did Linda in fact tell you that she was going to make money because of Gary Black? Yes, thank you. Nothing further. Additional questions? Nothing further. All right, this witness subject to recall. Yes, you may call your next witness, Mr. Perez. Yes, thank you. Is the defense now calling Detective Byers? That's what I was told. I'm going to make a prediction. Detective Byers, my recollection is I left you subject to recall. Is that yours as well? Yes, sir. All right, so I'll just remind you that you're still under oath. Good morning, Detective. Good morning. Good morning. During the course of this case, were you responsible for investigating the case involving the victim we've heard testified here as Ann Ryan? Yes. And you interviewed her a number of times? Yes. And you were present during her testimony? Yes. And you remember during her testimony she couldn't remember if Gary Black had ever made a clear threat to her, right? And at some point you did in fact interview Ann Ryan? Yes. And your interviews were recorded? Yes. And then transcribed? Yes. Now if you were to see a copy of the transcription, would that refresh your memory as to what Ann Ryan actually said regarding your questions of her and Gary Black's threats or absence of threats? Yes, I believe so. Detective, does that refresh your memory regarding what Ann Ryan told you? Yes, and your question of her was, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was nothing brought up about do this or do that, and she responds, going to jail. You say, this is going to happen or anything like that, and she responds, no, nothing was said like that. That's right. And she in fact said that during her interview with you. Yes, thank you, I have nothing further, Your Honor. Cross-examination. Yes, when she was talking about that, she was referring to when Gary Black came back to the apartment, right? Do you know the answer to that, Detective? I'm not sure which time that sentence was in reference to. Would it refresh your memory if I showed you the lines right before the portion that defense counsel showed you? Yes, it would. That refresh your memory? Yes, okay. And what portion was she talking about in that, Detective, when he came back? Okay, and in fact she told you he stated when he came back, follow me? Yes, she told you that? Yes, she did. Okay, and isn't it true she also told you that she felt like she had to? Yes, and that's because she felt like she was going to be arrested by the Layton Police Department from when they were there prior. Isn't that true? Objection. Calls for speculation. Sustained. Well, did she tell you that? Yes, she also told you she thought she was going to be arrested by Layton Police Department while they were there because different people were telling her that. Isn't that true? Yes. Nothing further. Redirect examination. Hello, Detective. During your first interview with Ann Ryan, she only indicated it was Officer Landers who had told her that she was going to be arrested. Objection. Leading. Sustained. During your first interview with Ann Ryan, did she only tell you that it was Landers who threatened arrest? Yes. And did she keep telling you that it was Landers who threatened arrest? Yes. And to be fair, later on, did you interview her again? Yes. And at that time she told you a sergeant threatened her arrest? Yes. And also an officer that she described in the bathroom threatened to arrest her. Did she tell you that? Yes, she did. And you interviewed all the sergeants in this case, right? Yes. And none of the sergeants told you that they threatened to arrest, did they? Objection. Hearsay. Sustained. In the presentation of your case, you didn't hear did you hear a sergeant testify that he threatened to arrest Ann Ryan? Objection. Relevance. Sustained as phrased. Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor. When you interviewed Ann Ryan the first time, isn't it true she also told you that Officer Black told her to kneel down? Yes. And you asked her, Detective, why she did that, right? Yes. Okay. And do you recall her saying, I felt afraid, I feel afraid to go to jail? Do you remember her saying that? Yes, I do. Do you remember her saying, quote, I felt threatened if I didn't cooperate, I was going to go to jail, the bottom line? Yes. Do you remember her saying, I thought I wanted to say no, but I was afraid to say no? Yes. Do you remember asking why? And her response was, because of my position and his position, I was scared. Yes. And she told you that he was wearing his uniform when he came back, right? Yes. She told you that when he knocked on that door, he announced himself as Layton Police Department. I believe she said Officer Black. Okay, Officer Black didn't say Gary Black. No. Gary Black. No. Officer Black. Yes. Nothing further. Quick little break here. We have a little bit more to practice. A few more minutes. And we will start with defense attorney. Ready? Here we go. Good morning, officer. Good morning, sir. Are you currently employed by the Layton Police Department? Yes, sir. How long have you been employed? Just a little bit over 8 years. Have you worked for any other law enforcement agencies before Layton Police? No, sir. And what kind of assignments have you worked while working for Layton Police? Just briefly. Patrol, SWAT, Honor Guard, POP team, bike team. Thank you. Over the course of your employment with Layton Police, have you had a chance to work with Gary Black? Yes, I have, sir. And on March 10th, 2009, did you have an occasion to respond to a residence on Rose Drive regarding a possible home invasion? Yes, sir. And did you respond to that? Yes, I did, sir. What was your role in that case? We ended up being the perimeter for the call, sir, at some point. What does that mean exactly? Standing on the perimeter, there was already other officers to the front of the residence. Were you responsible for ordering any of the occupants out of the residence? No, sir. Were you responsible for taking anybody into custody or transportation? No, sir. At any point, did you end up going inside of the residence? Yes, I did, sir. And at that time, did you make any searches? Did you make any search of the residence? No, sir. During the course of your... Have you interviewed with Gary Black in the course of your employment as a police officer? Yes, sir. Have you seen him interact with residents of the city of Layton? At times, yes. Have you seen him interact with people sometimes classified as arrestees? Yes, sir. Or possible defendants? Yes, sir. Have you ever noticed whether or not Gary Black treats those individuals fairly? Yes, sir, I do believe so. During the course of your job as a police officer, first, do you see yourself as an active officer? Yes, sir. You make a lot of arrests? I have, sir. Yes. You like to work? Yes, sir. You're saying that with a smile. Is that a yes? Yes, sir. Yes. Why is that? My new assignment doesn't allow me to be that proactive anymore. Are you feeling frustrated now? Yes, sir. During the course of your experience, have you come across misdemeanor crimes that you not only made an arrest? Yes, I have, sir. Have any of those included individuals under the influence of controlled substances? Yes, sir. Have you ever had contact with individuals in possession of drug-related items? Yes, sir. Have you made arrests in each and every situation? No, sir. Why not? Well, sir, if I arrested everybody that I came in contact with either under the influence or had a marijuana pipe, I'd be arresting people all day instead of responding to calls for service for the city. Okay, so are you saying there are other things that sometimes may take a priority? Yes, sir. And I believe one of the things you said was responding to calls for service. Yes, sir. What kinds of calls for service what's the range of calls for service that you've received in your experience? Sir, anything, objection, relevant, sustained, these cases that you've indicated, you've not always made an arrest of an individual in possession of drug items. What do you do with the items? If it's found in someone's car, it stays there 9 times out of 10. If it's in someone's car, it stays in the car. Do you think maybe you should book it? If I'm going to book it, I'm going to have to arrest someone for it. So it is a business decision that you make as to whether or not you book the items. I'm using my best judgment and it's circumstantial, obviously. And do you think that's appropriate in those situations? Yes. Thank you, officer. No further questions, Your Honor. And we will stop there. That will conclude our Q&A practice.